I'm not sure where you're watching this video, but it might not be around forever. However, up here, there's a link to my Telegram channel. It's a Telegram channel with all my content in it. Please check it out and subscribe, because from there, I'm not going anywhere. A brokie is somebody who cannot live within the means that they dream of to have a great standard of life. I understand that there are people who don't make very much money, who live on a farm, grow their own food, have apple trees in their garden, have a wife, have chickens, have pigs, have cows, have their family, and they're bringing in 60, 70,000 a year, but they're living in a field of abundance. Their life still has abundance and they have everything they want because they've manufactured a system in their life where they have everything they want. Brokie, I can only talk about from my standpoint because I am a consumer capitalist. I want the nice things that consumer capitalism offers to the people. I want the world's fastest cars. I want a sports car. I want a big house. I want luxury watches. I want all the nice things, custom-made suits that consumer capitalism offers to everybody if you have the money to buy it. So I think a brokie is somebody who can't have the things that they want. It's very simple. If you want a nice car and a nice house and a nice watch and you have a Porsche and a 3-bedroom house and a standard Rolex, nice pair of shoes, couple suits, and you're happy with that, then you are not a brokie. Whereas if you're sitting there in the exact same setup, crying and crying your eyes out that you can't afford a Bugatti, crying that you're still flying economy and not first class, then you are in fact a brokie because you haven't found a way to make your expectations match your work ethic, your income, and everything else that's being delivered by life. That's what makes you a brokie. Are you happy? Yes or no? Do you have enough? Yes or no? I do.
Yeah, if you want to start creating content, again, see what sticks. Start recording your life. Obviously, the very boring parts of your life are never going to make for good viewing anywhere. But that's essentially what me and Andrew did. We started just documenting the things we did. Spending money, buying cars, going shopping. Then Andrew would talk about news topics. We used to call it offending what's trending. And this is about 10 years ago. So we'd find something that was prominent in the news and Andrew would rant about it and talk about it. And that turned out to be far more popular than us buying Lamborghinis or, hanging around women and going to nightclubs and all the other stuff we were recording. It was these tiny little segments of Andrew ranting about current affairs that I think was the beginning of his rise to stardom. And now he's still famous for doing exactly that. That's essentially what the Emergency Meeting podcasts are. It's me and Andrew talking about what's going on in the world in our unique comedic way. So if you don't know what to do, record everything and see what gets views, see what goes viral, see what people share. I think people evolve over time anyway. The content I was making when I was 25, I still ran my webcam studio back then. I had no kids back then. I was just some young guy. I was making pretty decent money. I had 2 supercars and a rented house. I was doing okay for myself. But I think the content changed as I changed as a person, as I grew up. You can actually watch a chronological timeline of me growing up if you follow my content closely enough and you were to go back far enough and find all of my old videos. So I don't think you necessarily need to diversify purposefully. I think that it will happen accidentally anyway. If you are popular and if people do watch you, you do grow up and you do change your mind on certain things. And then your content becomes different. Obviously, when you're in a position like I am, people love to throw your old content back at you. Oh, you said this about women when you were 25. So? I was 25, fuck off. I'm 36 now. So procrastination and hesitation are the enemy though. So whatever you're going to do, I suggest you start today.
A step you could take to come across as a more elegant person is always, I guess, to present yourself better. I try to give answers, and I've been trying to give answers that shy away from appearance because appearance is so amazingly important and everybody already knows that I don't want to give the easiest answer in the world, but certainly dress in a way that complements your body type. Try to wear a nice watch, have your hair cut, have your hair styled, have your facial hair either shaved or trimmed so it looks nice and you look sharp. I think that is certainly one of the most important things you can do as a man or a woman. And the simple reason is that first impressions are called first impressions for a reason, and it's very hard to shake them. Now, if you have no substance as a man, let's say you look like a Calvin Klein model, and you're in great shape and you're wearing a great suit, but you have no substance, there's nothing in your brain. The first appearance isn't going to get you that far. It's only going to get you the first 30 seconds of conversation, whether it be with a woman or a man or a business partner, or you're pitching somebody in a meeting. If you sit there and you can't speak well and you have no ideas and you're stupid and you're swearing and you're using bad language, that first impression will go out of the window very, very quickly. However, it's starting the race sprinting. if that makes sense. So always make sure you're presented well. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you have a scholarship that pushes you towards your dream, if your dream is playing in the NFL and they say, well, come play for this college team, here's your scholarship, sir, then by all means go and do that. Pass your classes with as much competency as you need to. It's not going to do you any harm, and pursue your sports career. Nothing wrong with that. But don't take out the loans. Don't sign the papers that put you in debt slavery. Don't do it, because there's no escape from generational debt. It's not worth taking that payoff, because if we talk about the odds of making it into the NFL or the NBA, they are low. Calculate the odds with the millions upon millions of university degrees that are handed out by universities every single year, even in a country like the United States alone. What are the odds that that degree is going to make you a millionaire in the short term, in the first 10 years, 15 years? The odds are, I'd say, a lot worse than somebody who's pretty good at football trying to be an NFL prospect. So what's the actual payoff? Signing those papers and getting into debt slavery, I don't think is worth it. I think it's the worst gamble ever. If there was a 50-50 chance that you'd have all your debt paid off in 2 years and you'd be living a nice life, maybe then, with a 50-50 chance, you have a 1 in 10,000 chance of that degree specifically putting you in a place where your debt's gone and your life is great. I'll tell you how university degrees have become inflated. In the same way the word model has become inflated. I am 36 years old, and I remember a time there was 2 or 3 girls in my hometown who I knew were models. You'd find them on pictures of shampoo bottles and on TV commercials, and you'd be like, this girl from my town is a model. With the advent of Instagram, which is essentially a university that prints out model degrees, what's happened is the word model is meaningless now. Oh, I'm a model. Wait, you make a very decent living and make a great income doing professional modeling. Well, no, but I have this Instagram profile and I get booked for various jobs and photo shoots and all these people want to. There's no such thing as a model in the traditional sense anymore. They're much harder to find because any girl who says she's a model, you're not impressed by it anymore. You have to actually look into their life. Does she have a great agency? Is she at London Fashion Week? That's my test. Has she been to London, Milan, or Paris Fashion Week? If not, you are not, in fact, a model. So I'm a doctor. Wow, great. It's the 1940s and you're a doctor. You must be great. You must know medicine. You must be adept with the highest levels of medical science. Oh, no, I'm a doctor. Why are you a doctor? Oh, you have a PhD in gender studies because you invented something new about men being women and women being men. And you've technically, I guess, grown the field of expertise, which is what it takes to get a PhD. So you're a doctor too. The man who thinks men are women and women are men is now also a doctor technically because a piece of paper says he is. It's a scam. That's standard. Introducing yourself with your first and last name is absolutely what you should do. And even if it's somebody famous who I'm meeting and that person knows exactly who I am, them and all their bodyguards and security guards and staff, I'll say, hi, Tristan Tate, nice to meet you. Look him in the eye. I'll always tell him my first and last name. That is a standard playbook. You have to do that. Graduating out of brokie land today in today's society isn't about being a millionaire. It's about having a high income. And I would put that income somewhere along the lines of $500,000 to $1 million per year in income, because that is enough to take care of all of your creature comforts, to live, to eat, to do whatever you like, to have a few nice things, even to have a nice car, and still put hundreds of thousands away every year. Hundreds of thousands is going somewhere else, into crypto, into offshore, maybe into a Dubai real estate play that you're doing. That's the only way to truly escape the matrix. I think you need $500,000 to $1 million per year. Then you're comfortable, and then you're literally no longer a brokie. You will have things that less than 1% of the population gets to have, like a second home, like a home owned outright in these days, like a fast car. If you're clearing $35,000 a month after your taxes, then you're no longer a brokie. You're not rich. You're not successful. You're not in the top 1%. You're not a baller, but you're not a brokie. 35,000 is the benchmark. You know what else you could do if you were broke? You could find a business to start that takes very little money to start. Now, I ran a webcam studio, and I'm talking about it more and more these days because of this stupid police case against me and these stupid false accusations. So a webcam studio was an example of a business that at the time when I was young and broke, I didn't need very much money to start. I had the expertise into how all the websites worked. And how to build social media profiles. The girls were obviously pretty. You needed a laptop and a webcam and a keyboard, and that's all you really needed to get started. And you could make thousands of dollars per week that way. And then you could scale your business from there. Now, there are many different businesses that will take your time up, but don't cost money to start. Even in your local area. I mean, you have a lawnmower, you got no money. Maybe you need $500, $600, $700 before you can buy the equipment you need to get it to the next step. Go door to door with your lawnmower before you can hire some Mexican to do it for you and cut everyone's grass before you have the time to register a company, hire an employee, and get him cutting grass for you and then scale from there. So find a business that doesn't take much to start up. Certainly don't go around asking people for money like people ask me all the time. Hey, Tate, I'm broke, but I've got this business idea. I need 50 grand. If you're good at business and you have a good business mind, you will find a business that you can do without begging me for money, because I'm never going to see that 50 grand again.
And I've never broken any laws. I don't care at all. In fact, I am so happy that I ran that webcam studio. I almost am tempted, just as a fuck you to Romania, to open a new one. There's 3,000 of them here anyway. I might just open one and hire a bunch of models and say, come and arrest me because it's not a crime. But I think that goes against my newfound morality and my values, so I won't do that. But I could, and the prosecutors from DCOT could literally suck my dick because there's nothing wrong with that business and it's a fully legal tax payable business and there are studios all over this country. So people often ask me if I'm ashamed of running that webcam studio, and I'm like, no, I'm exceptionally proud of myself. I learned so much about, I think, the male condition, how lonely men are, how sad men are. And this is something that me and Andrew talk about a lot, men's mental health. I learned a lot about male-female dynamics. I learned a lot about just general how to manage a business. It was a very interesting business to run. It was an incredibly interesting business to run. And keep in mind, I don't come from a world where I have rich parents or successful parents. I don't have a university education. I'm not from I didn't go to a good school. I come from probably the worst town in England. It's still the worst town to live in England. And I made a successful business out of running a webcam studio. And now I preach against it. I'm far more qualified to preach against the consumption of adult content and the creation of adult content because I'm a former industry insider. I'm very much like a former drug dealer who knows how bad drugs are because he saw the effects it had on his customers. So I like all the knowledge I gained from running that business. And if I could turn back time and not do it, I wouldn't. I'd turn back time and do everything exactly the same as I did.
Shopping in London is all about the sales experience. And the sales experience of the things you buy in London is better than almost anywhere in the world. New York, comparable. Some places in Dubai, comparable. However, even when I was in the Rolls-Royce showroom, signing the papers for the car, looking the car up and down, etc., there was champagne in my hand, all the champagne I could drink. You're sitting there, getting pissed. It's part of the English culture. I think that's why English do it best. It's exactly the same on Savile Row when I go to get my suits made. When I go and I try this jacket on for size, it's a bit too big in the shoulders and they're pinning it down, etc. There's a gin and tonic in one hand, a champagne in the other hand. You're talking, you're making stupid jokes, you're feeling all these expensive materials, you're making stupid decisions, you're drunk as fuck, you have a good night out, you go home and you're hungover the next morning, you look at your tailoring bill and you're like, I've spent 160,000 pounds, haven't I? However, it's totally worth it. The shopping experience for the most expensive things in the world is not just about picking up the item. Procuring the item is secondary. And it should be the same. London's getting dangerous nowadays, but even if you go into a Patek Philippe shop and you've ordered this watch, obviously, you would have had to order it in advance and it's ready and you go in there to pick it up. It's, oh, hello, Mr. Tate, how are you? Please take a seat. Would you like a glass of champagne? Even when Andrew goes into Armani, for example, because he's such a well-known customer, it's, oh, hi guys, how are you? You sit down, here's some booze, not for Andrew because he doesn't drink, and let me bring all the things in your size that I think you'll like. That's a shopping experience like no other. It's very different from, I remember going through the racks at Matalan. If you're English, you'll know the reference, and trying to find a pair of jeans that fit me after all these pairs of jeans and nothing's tailored and nothing fits and it's horrible. And then I find a pair of jeans and it's £4 more than I have in my pocket because I've only got £30 and you can't negotiate. Shopping sucks unless you're a millionaire. The term millionaire was coined at the beginning of the 1900s, and millionaire was impressive back then. My 1963 Aston Martin DB5, when it was first sold, cost £4,100. Can you imagine the spending power of £1 million? £1 million back when the fastest, most exotic car in the world was £4,000? A millionaire meant something. You could buy mansions, multiple mansions, set your family up for life. The term millionaire is still thrown around as some kind of accolade, but the true difference between millionaire in the early 1900s and millionaire now is maybe 90, 100 times. Being a millionaire in 1920, you'd have to be worth 150 now to brag about the same level of wealth and spending power. So people want to brag about having $100,000 salary, this magical 6 figures. Well, 6 figures doesn't actually mean anything anymore, does it? Because the problem with six figures is, one, you pay 40% tax because taxes are eating your ass, and you're left with $60,000. $60,000 every single year. That is not much money at all. You're expected to have a house and a family and raise some kids on it. A Big Mac or a Whopper is about $6 in today's economy. $6 in today's economy. That's 10,000 sandwiches per year. That's it. 10,000 sandwiches. 30 sandwiches per day. 30 sandwiches per day is all you can afford, and you make six figures. 30 fucking sandwiches? Enough to feed you and your friends? It's embarrassing. Your six figures doesn't mean anything. Pitching face-to-face, business meetings. On the phone, you can hear the confidence in somebody. You can hear how they're coming across. It's the way I'm speaking to the camera right now. I'm not speaking to the camera like, when you're pitching people. They can hear it on the phone, but in person, they can feel it. Nice, firm handshake. Sitting like this, trying to explain your ideas. Being animated with your hands when you're pitching your ideas. Being excited in your voice when you're pitching your ideas. If I were to sit here and say like, when you're pitching people in person, what you need to do is be excitable and, make sure that you're coming across right. It's not the same. It's not the same. You have to have the energy. You have to have the fire. You certainly don't have to seem like it's the most important thing in the world, like you care more than anything else in the world, but you need to seem like you care more than them. That's the key. If this business has a problem and I can fix it, I care about this man's business visibly more than he does during that meeting. That's the only thing that's going to get a man excited. There are very few types of sales where a salesman can sit back and be like, well, here's the price, here's the best I could do. Do you want it or not? And I've been sold those things in some ways. I went into the Rolls-Royce showroom in London, and the guy's name, I believe, was Warren or Stephen. It may have been Stephen, actually, the guy who sold me the Rolls-Royce. Older gentleman, very well dressed, very smart. It was £500,000 on this price tag of this car. It was the only one for sale. He knew it was the only one for sale. He knew if I didn't want to buy that one, I'd have to wait 6 months after ordering one. And he said, well, I've been doing this a long time, guys. 465, best I could do, yes or no? And I was like, cool, yes. Because he's in a very unique position as a salesman. He hasn't come to me and said, hey, Tristan, do you want to get around in luxury? Here's a brand new product called a Rolls-Royce Wraith. That didn't happen. I saw the car. I fell in love with it. I walked into his showroom as hundreds of time wasters do every day. He's busy. He doesn't care. There's one for sale, and he made the close. But that is a very exceptionally difficult type of sales to get into. How many Toyotas has Steven sold in his lifetime? How many Lancias? How many Austins? I'm talking about old car brands that were around in his time. He's a much older man. How many Mini Coopers did this guy sell to get to the elite pinnacle of sales when he is in the London Rolls-Royce showroom selling their premium vehicles? Probably a lifetime of work. So he deserves to be there. But he's done plenty of hard closes on Land Rovers and Jeeps, believe me. Absolutely. As a man, speaking as a customer, not as a businessman, as a customer of the most luxurious car garages in the world, as a customer of some of the finest tailors in the world, as a customer of some of the finest watch houses and Swiss watchmakers in the world, the number one thing you need to do is make your client feel, or if you can actually legitimately be his friend. Find something that you and your client have in common, bond with him and build a friendship with him. There's a reason I will not cheat on my tailor. And it's not because of the specific tailoring house, which I quite like. But Savile Row's filled with a bunch of tailoring houses who could, after a few runs, make me things that I'm perfectly happy with, I'm sure. But it's the people. It's the people in that store who I like and respect. That's why I will not leave. So it's exactly the same way as most men don't cheat on their barber. Why? A lot of the times he'll talk to you. Hey man, how you been? How's your business? How's your breakup? And he remembers your issues. He remembers your problems. Be friends with your customers if you're doing anything that's high ticket and anything that's expensive. If you become an integral part of a man's business, say you're in charge of his newspaper advertising, whatever it is, if it's a big client of yours and you are important to him, make sure you build that friendship. The only time that's not necessary is if you're selling ashtrays online and emailing people to see if they want some cheap consumer product. But besides that, friendship is the way. You have to understand that nobody cares about your problems and no one cares about your life. Most people care only about their problems. So how are you going to solve my problems? That's an incredibly important part of reaching out to anybody. If someone were to say to me, for example, hey Tristan, I don't think your videos are quite up to speed. You got the best cars, the best women, the best whatever, best suits, but your videos, they're only 8 out of 10. I'm the best guy for the job. I'll think, you know what? Let me at least hear this guy out. But idiots try to pitch me all the time. I've got an example today. Today, someone said, Tristan, you've got a problem that I could solve. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Good, 10 out of 10 start. Well, Alex, the kid who used to wash your cars, you're now not allowed to talk to him because he's been taken away and banned from speaking to you. So I want the job washing your cars. And I was like, when they banned me from talking to Alex, they also took all of my cars. What the fuck are you going to wash? Well, I'm just saying. So he started so good and snowballed into a tragedy so fast. He crashed and burned in front of my eyes on a Twitter DM out of nowhere. But certainly trying to solve their problems is the way forward. I'll tell you what I don't care about. Hey, Tristan, my name's Steven. I'm from Utah. I'm 21 years old. A while ago, I was watching your and your brother's videos, and it really gave me the motivation I needed to break out the matrix. You see, my mom has a problem, but shut the fuck up! Shut up! I don't want to read your stupid message. I don't care. What are you trying to offer me? And at most of the times at the end of this message, the offer is give me money. Either for your crappy business idea or to fix your car so you can pay me back with interest like I'm some fucking loan shark. Like I could be bothered to drive to Utah and break your fucking legs for the $600 you owe me. I'm not interested in doing that. The flight will cost me more. So I just know I'm never going to see my money again. Be compendious about what you're trying to help the person achieve in your first 1 or 2 lines. Because if you don't sum it up in your first 1 or 2 lines, they are not going to be interested.
They did a survey of American school children and Chinese school children, and they asked the Chinese school children, which job and which profession would you most like to do when you're older? And the Chinese school children were usually given an example like doctor or engineer or maybe astronaut or something a bit more exciting. And the number one job that all people in the West, the United States, the United Kingdom, that all school children want to do is vlogger or influencer. And the problem with that is as follows. Not many people are genuinely interesting. I think what you're better off doing is living an interesting life and learning some interesting things before you start trying to make online content, because your choices are either you're a man with influence or you're a clown. You can go viral for being a clown, or you can go viral for actually being insightful and knowledgeable and people wanting to listen to what you have to say. If you're 19 years of age, the odds are you don't know anything. I was relatively interesting for a 19-year-old. I had my kickboxing career. I'd read, probably about 1,000 books at that point. I knew a lot of stuff, but I was still infinitesimally less interesting than I am today. What you're better off doing at 19 is going traveling, going backpacking, going hitchhiking, doing some interesting things, doing some dangerous things, doing some things that give you cool stories to tell. Then and only then should you think about making online content and trying to be famous as an influencer or somebody that people on the internet may want to listen to. Because otherwise, no one gives a shit. I always took opportunities to travel and see the world from when I was very, very young. The first trip I ever took without a parent, I was 15 years old, and I went over to The Hague in the Netherlands because I had a friend who lived out there, a guy who I used to work with at the fast food restaurant, funnily enough, and that was the first trip I ever took by myself. I was going to Egypt. I looked at the pyramids when I was 17 and a half, 18. I snuck beer inside one of them actually and sat and drank beer where the sarcophagus was. So maybe that's why maybe the Pharaoh's curse is coming back to haunt me now, and that's why I'll have all these legal problems. But yeah, I snuck a beer inside the Great Pyramid of Giza. I was doing some pretty interesting stuff. I didn't have very high budgets, but I knew not to waste the little money I had on stupid things. Now I buy stupid things, but now I have all the money in the world. And when I'm free to travel again, my life is again going to be very, very interesting. I like to do things that no one else has done. So even as a 19, 20-year-old man, I was a lot more well-traveled than my contemporaries and my friends. I was a lot more knowledgeable about the world. I'd learned different parts of different languages. I'd been to countries that no one really went to, especially back then. I'd been all through Slovakia, Poland, and Eastern Europe at a very young age. And if you spoke to me at 20, or if I were to go online and start speaking, as I did at probably 24, 25, I had some interesting stories, and I was a relatively interesting person. I ran my webcam studio. That's a very interesting thing to talk about, regardless of whether you like it or not. It's one of the reasons myself and my brother took off, because we were the only people who worked inside this industry who were sitting in front of the camera talking about how it works, what the insights are, and we were both professional fighters. We both had our kickboxing careers. We've both been around the world a bit. So even as young men, a lot of people gravitated towards us because we had something interesting to say. If you get a job straight out of high school and you work your job 5 days a week, every single day for 6 or 7 years, and you're 25 and you haven't done anything, don't think about trying to be an online influencer. And this is when you get the very worst of people online, when you don't actually have anything original to say yourself. So what you do is you just regurgitate other people's content. When Andrew first became popular, there was a whole series of Andrew Tate copycats. They'd sit around, they'd try and say the same things, and they try and describe the way Andrew works and the way Andrew lives, and I guess use stolen valor essentially to pretend that they're this insightful man who understands male-female dynamics better than anyone else. But at the end of the day, all of those people have now disappeared. Andrew Tate copycats have disappeared from the internet. Why? Because they weren't authentic. No one gravitated towards them, and they never built a solid following. So you don't have to be like me, and you don't have to be like Andrew, and you don't have to be like Jake Paul. You don't have to be like anyone on the internet. You have to be like you, and you have to think, what is so interesting about you or unique about you that millions of people, or at least thousands of people, are going to think, you know what, I want to hear what this guy has to say. And if you don't have something that you can immediately think of that makes you stand out from the crowd, then I would suggest putting down the camera, putting down your editing software, and going out and exploring and enjoying the world for 2 or 3 years and doing something interesting, learning some interesting facts, getting some interesting stories behind you. Then people might want to listen to you. If you're a 17-year-old kid who lives with your mom and your dad, where do you go? I guess that really depends on which country you're in. And doing dangerous things as a man is a very good way of getting credibility, and it's a very good way of people looking up to you. So when you have very, very low budgets, some of the things that you could do aren't necessarily safe, but as a man, to live an interesting life, we all have to take risks, right? If you live in California, I don't know, hitchhike from California to New York City or to Florida. Try to get somewhere else without any money, without a car of your own. You know, do something interesting. There was a guy who I still speak about to this day. He rode his bicycle from the Netherlands down to a city in Romania. And I went to meet the guy, and he was quite an interesting person, but that's something no one else had done. He was sleeping under bridges and sleeping under motorway passes in the Romanian forests, which are filled with bears, as you know if you've ever seen any of my footage driving through them. And it was just an interesting thing to do. And I think that that's something that he'll have forever, and it's something that he'll carry around with himself forever, and he'll always have a very interesting story to tell, you know? Go interrailing. Get a backpack, take a train in France, try and get to Moscow, Russia. Do it. There's a guy famously, maybe the best kid at it, is called Lord Miles. He's a good friend of myself, a good friend of my brother. He went to Afghanistan, got arrested by the Taliban. He went onto Snake Island off the coast of Brazil, where humans aren't allowed to go. And he keeps doing what I guess you could describe as dumb shit. However, for a young man, he's got some of the most interesting stories that I've ever heard. And he has stories that are so cool, I don't have those stories. Why? Because he's taking it to the furthest extremes, which you don't need to do, but you do need to do something interesting. The term influencer is very hard to define. And I massively dislike being referred to as an influencer because I didn't make my money or become successful or become well known because of my antics online. A lot of people start on YouTube, even the biggest YouTubers in the world, they start on YouTube doing stupid dances, doing stupid pranks, doing stupid stunts, and they get more views, and as they get more views, they get more money. They use that money to live a more interesting life, and it's this upward spiral, I guess, in terms of being an influencer. That is their job. I'm not an influencer. I'm a man with influence. I already had money. I already had stories. I already had a successful life. I already had a Lamborghini before I decided to post anything online. I think I bought a Lamborghini only about a year or two after Instagram was even invented. So avoid being a content creator for the sake of being a content creator. When someone asks me, what do I do? And especially when I was younger, I'd say, well, I'm a professional kickboxer. Yes, I make videos on the internet, but I'm a professional kickboxer. Then it was, oh, well, I make videos on the internet, but I run this interesting business. It's a webcam studio. Well, you know, I make videos on the internet, but I run one of the world's largest online universities teaching hundreds of thousands of young men and women how to get rich and how to make money online. I own university.com. Those are my accolades. What do? I'm a car collector. What do you do? I've always got something about me more than just the fact that I make videos online, because I don't need to make videos online, and I don't need to do podcasts, and I don't need to stream, and I don't need to push anything out there in order to live my successful life. In fact, my life would probably be a lot less complicated and a lot simpler if I didn't do these things. But I guess this is my way, as an older man who's taken a bunch of risks when I was younger in the kickboxing ring and going to dangerous places. I guess this is my way of dancing with the devil, if you like. This is my way of walking the tightrope, because I'm very aware that a lot of the stuff, especially my brother says, puts a big target on our backs. It puts a very big target on our backs from some of the world's most powerful people, and they know that millions of young men listen to us, so they want us in jail and they want to put us away. It's interesting and it's fun and it keeps life interesting. I guess that's why I don't
That's why I don't quit. But also I get this weird sense of satisfaction that all the people who send me fan mail that I help, Tristan, you've changed my life. Tristan, I'm fitter, I'm stronger, I'm richer, I'm making a bunch of money in the real world, and it's all because of you. That's something that I wouldn't want to give up either.